and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. We do not necessarily represent your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution.radio. The number one listener-supported talk radio on the net, so push the donate button and you can also access the archives for free. I think you kind of get that in return. Get yourself some great merchandise. Do that from the station's website and we implore you to that. You can get a t-shirt, a mug or anything you like. So you can also support Mackey and I. You can. Mickey's just joining us. I'm just finishing the intro. Thanks for listening to Revolution Radio. We are halfway through show number 703. Yes. Oh, you can't hear me. I did the whole intro on mute. How's that? You're back. You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the number one supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button and get yourself some merchandise from the station's website, maybe a t-shirt, a mug or anything you like. Thanks for listening to Revolution Radio. This is show number halfway through 703.
3 and 700.
Now, Mackie,
indeed. Now, where are we?
For you, I'm going to tell you. I did send you a screenshot, but we are only on page 3.
Where?
We're on page 3.
3? Really?
Yeah, because I was talking through each one of these topics and giving some enlightenment towards each one. And we're currently, and you can start with Dimensional Travelers, Shifts and Anomalies, the Bell Skinwalker Ranch, etc.
Oh, jeez, that's not far down the page at all. Very good. Yeah, look, we've talked, like as Dave has, I'm sure, elucidated last time we came together. We have covered a lot of stuff. Dimensional Travelers, Dimensional Shifts, Anomalies, the Bell, Skinwalker Ranch, a whole bunch of stuff. I think a lot of the phenomena that we encounter, if not all the phenomena we encounter that we deem to be paranormal or supernatural, are related. And I think this is probably one of the best ones, together with the next topic, which is the Mandela effect, where we seem to be slipping in and out of this. I know it sounds crazy. I get it. I understand. But we seem to be slipping in and out of our dimensional confines, as it were. Right? So we've got, here we are living our lives, wonderful. And then your friend's car is blue instead of red. But you could have sworn it was blue. But no, it's red, right? And you dismiss it, as we do with most things, unless the thing is really, really, really odd, right? And what we're seeing here, especially with the Mandela effect, but we'll get to the Skinwalker Ranch and the Bell in a second. Some of the things are just too persistent and they really bother you. I mean, for me personally, and I've discussed this before, it's the Moonraker movie, James Bond, and it's the final scene where I think it's Jaws falls in love with the girl. And she has got a mouthful of metal. He's got a mouthful of metal. They smile, and it's that smile when they both realize they got a mouthful of metal. They fall in love. For me, that was iconic and completely understandable. It made perfect sense for my, I don't want to say 12, 13-year-old mind, whatever it was at the time. But lo and behold, in this reality, let's call it, she doesn't have braces. Another one was Fruit of the Loom. And again, personally, for me, I didn't speak English when I first saw the Fruit of the Loom logo. Fruit, I deducted means Frucht, which is fruit in German. Not too close, not too far a word away from the English. But loom, I had no idea what loom meant. In my mind, loom was the cornucopia, because in my recollection, the Fruit of the Loom logo had a whole bunch of fruit, but they were sort of rolling or falling out of a cornucopia, Füllhorn, as it's called in German. And in my mind, a loom was therefore a full horn, a cornucopia, incorrectly. But I do remember making that connection, right? So those are a couple of things. There are others, but those are a couple of things which really cooked my goose. A personal experience I had, and I still can't explain to this day, and I have a witness for it. Put my phone into my shoe, because that's what you do in my hotel room. And I was sharing my hotel room with my buddy. We're in Singapore, and I put my phone in my shoe. We go out to do something, come back after a while, and I want to grab my phone, which is in my shoe under bed, except it's not in my shoe. Not that shoe, not the other shoe, not in any shoe for the bed. I looked for it for a while. We even called it. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, well, that's a bit odd. Well, not much we can do, but we had to leave because we had something on, so off we went. Came back, and I'm just, racking my brain, where could my phone be? And then, lo and behold, my phone was in my shoe. And you'd say, it was, you probably pushed it in such a way that you didn't see it, or the battery was also run down. That's why you didn't hear it ring. So I take it out. The battery was not run down. It was still charged, so it was operational. Didn't have any of my missed calls. And I can't explain it. I have no explanation. None. Zero.
That's bizarre. No sense, I didn't even have your missed calls in it.
No, I know, right? It's just odd. So, look, it happened. I really have no reason to lie to you, and I'll meet my friend next weekend just to see if he still remembers. Mm-hmm. This incident. I mean, this is oh, good Lord, this is probably 26, 27 years ago now. Because we're in Singapore for my friend's wedding. Anyway, point is, all of us, maybe not quite as upsetting or as odd as my experiences necessarily, but we all have experiences like that. I'm sure I put my keys here. I swear I put my keys in the bowl, on the desk, whatever. But they're not there. Except later they are. And then it comes to things like disappearances in parks, etc. Right? Where people are disappearing, children sometimes, quite often children that are in some way or another challenged, right? Autistic or otherwise. And they look and look and look. They can't find anything, and they go over the same ground again and again and again, and then look, seventh time they look or whatever, the child is there, or a shoe is there, or clothes are there, or something is there. Even though we have gone over the ground many times before, it makes no sense. And some of the disappearances that David Paulides spoke about are phenomenally inexplicable. Experienced hunters, trekkers, bushmen that know it's not new terrain for them. It's terrain they've been to 100 times. And still, odd disappearances happen. And these are armed people too, right? Especially in the States. When you go hunting, you got a sidearm, you got a long arm usually, So it's not like these are, just poor city schlops. City slickers, as it were. And Skinwalker Ranch, these phenomena, again, are there as well. Where they found recently the carcass of at least a creature that was, 75-80% direwolf. They found the physical carcass. Now, the direwolf has been extinct for 15,000 years. And it's, to my knowledge, and I'm happy to be corrected, there haven't really been any wolves, let alone direwolves, in Utah, in the United States. But there it was. And there have been stories about these big black dogs, which could be a direwolf. And if it's dark, dark gray or gray could be black, right? That are just appearing and disappearing. And even if you shoot them, they disappear again. So if there's one animal, a juvenile, there has to be a breeding population somewhere. Mm-hmm. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Like a juvenile doesn't just pop up out of thin air, or did it? Okay. The Nazi bell was meant to breach dimensional space. Some people believe that the Kecksburg UFO may have been the bell.
That's right.
The Nazi bell.
May not, its but description was very similar.
Very, very similar, yeah. And the Nazis were said to have been experimenting with dimensional and even time travel. There's a series of books which are really, really great. I've got them on my shelf. somewhere else. I'll talk about it next week. Remind me there so I get it ready before the show. But there's this gentleman, I can't remember his name, and he did really great research. And one of his books is called The Reich of the Black Sun. Phenomenal research work. He's also postulated that the Nazis may have used nuclear weapons, or atomic weapons, on the Eastern Front potentially, because Hitler did not want to use the even if he had one, he didn't want to use England or America because he felt they were fellow Aryans, and he didn't want to do that. Sorry, that's sort of a dimensional travelers and Mandela effect, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I gave an example last week about Mandela effect, and that what's Sheldon's girlfriend in The Big Bang Theory?
Oh, I forgot her name.
Yeah, well, we know who we're talking about, right? So she has her own podcast, and she was made aware of the Mandela effect, which she immediately poo-pooed. It's like, nah, not. What is it again? And he said, and she goes, no, not really. And he goes, did you know that the Fruit of the Loom doesn't have the cornucopia? And she was shocked. She goes, no, but that's how I grew up. I grew up with it having a cornucopia. And in fact, they found, their researcher found a news story talking about a lawsuit against someone who was trying to use the cornucopia in their image, in their logo brand. And the Fruit of the Loom was suing them for using the cornucopia, which they today have never claimed that they've ever used. So it was extraordinary. She said she remembers it everywhere. It was the thing. And then now she is 100% on board with the Mandela effect. And the guy that was on there, Mayim, Gallup, that's right. So the guy that was providing the details to her and enlightening her was surprised initially that she hadn't heard it, but as he kept going, she was suddenly completely shocked. And I think it was probably one of those best things sure, she's an actress, but she really didn't know. That was an unveiling of the Mandela effect to someone who's just another pocket. We don't think we're living in different pockets of time or history, but the internet has shown us that now we can have contact with these people that have got a different experience in the same world. And I think that's the strongest part of this, is not that things change, not that people lie or misremember things, which is science's explanation for the whole thing, because they refuse to believe that there isn't even differences in pockets of time or history. But it's becoming more and more evident, and I've said it before. I'm just, for a new audience, I'm on the Mandela died in prison side of the story. I'm aware that he's alive now, because I was surprised to hear he made it out of prison nearly a decade after he'd passed away. Like, what? How is that even possible? None of that made any sense to me. So, Mackie, take time travel.
Sure. Look, again, time travel we've covered quite extensively, and is there evidence for it? Well, yes. There's some objects which are out of time that have been found. They could be explained by time travel, but they could also be explained by advanced civilizations existing before ours, right? But time travel in and of itself, we have to first of all understand that it is not forbidden by our science. Okay, time travel is not like faster than light travel, according to Einstein, is impossible. I have my issues with that, but that's neither here nor there. Time travel, on the other hand, yeah, sure. Time doesn't care which way it goes, up, down, left, right, and center. You can turn around all you want. I don't care. So as far as physics equations, the mathematics equations are concerned, the direction of time is a complete illusion. It makes no difference which way time flows. So time travel is possible. In fact, according to the math, if you enter the orbit without falling into it of a black hole at just the right way, and you sort of, you orbit the black hole a certain way, a certain distance, and you exit the orbit of the black hole again, chances are that you can travel back or even forwards in time. Okay. And it really, so if it is physically or scientifically possible that something can be done, then eventually it will be done. And it's irrelevant when it will be done, because Dave, what do you want?
I want time travel.
When do you want it?
It's irrelevant.
There you go. Thank you. Absolutely. It's completely irrelevant when you invent time travel. Once you've invented it, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you can, it permeates, if you will, throughout. And have we seen time travelers? Have we seen evidence of interference? That's a really good question. One of my favorite literary genres is science fiction. And within science fiction, I love time travel as well as alternate dimensional stories. But time travel, I love. Now, time travel, comes with a whole bunch of paradoxes. Do we change the past? Does it affect the future? Do we create a new time track? If we're living in a multiverse, it doesn't matter. But once you've traveled in time, if we're living in a multiverse, you will never ever go home. Even if we're not living in a multiverse, once you start traveling in time, you will never ever go home. Why? Because the timeline that you leave, if there's only the one timeline, will be altered by you. Completely, even if it's not your attention, even if you take every precaution. And there is this great Simpson episode where Homer travels back in time and steps on a bug or something, and then everything changes. It's hilarious. And he goes back again, changes something, and then he destroys everything, goes back again. And everything is perfect. His family, in a beautiful house, and etc. But they have lizard tongues. And he goes, close enough. But he leaves the perfect place when they say, when he asks, well, pass me the donuts, please, Marge. And Marge goes, donuts? What are donuts? And he leaves. And
he
Marge
leaves,
goes, it's raining.
It's raining donuts.
It's raining
outside. It would have been his heaven.
So look, even if this is really, now when I was unattached, unmarried, no kids, I would have time traveled with abandon, no problem at all. Oh, absolutely, I would have. Right now, having a family and children, no, not a chance. Not willingly, I wouldn't time travel, because the risk of alteration is just too great. And the subject matter has been handled really well in movies and in books, short stories, etc. And again, there's some really great material out there. But of course, we don't know really what the nature of time actually is, how time travel would affect it. I mean, we could be surrounded by time travelers, for all we know, that have no effect at all on our experiential timeline. Right? On the other hand, we could be surrounded by time travelers that are changing the timeline all the time. And maybe that is part of the Mandela effect. I don't know. Just bear in mind, this is important, that time travel, of course, Dave, is possible.
Yeah, my favorite time travel reference is Captain Janeway saying that the causality of time travel gives her a headache. Because she has to try and think about what do I do, what do I not do. So I'll skip one. You can do that one. I'm just going to do magic. And for all intents and purposes, anything we do with enough technological gap will appear to be magic to an audience. If you're, say you took a cell phone back 100 years, you wouldn't get burnt at a stake, but someone would certainly take it from you and beat you to death, right? They wouldn't be totally amazed by it. It would just be, what? That can't be possible. You can't see people, 100 years ago before television. Could you imagine that? All we have is with cameras. So I really have a hard time with the two things about magic. One, magic we see today is illusionism, or mentalism. They're tricks there are ways of being able to trick us into the obvious conclusion, but hiding what they do to get there. And to me, and to all of the audience who enjoy watching magic shows, it is the joy of the illusion, or being fooled into it. And I think that's the importance of magic and the understanding of it. But if you go back far enough, you could be burnt to the stake. You can be burnt at the stake for doing anything that we do today with any of our technology. So if someone from the future was to appear in front of us suddenly, how would we today view that as opposed to 200 years ago? 200 years ago, they could be called a demon. You know what I mean? It could be an apparition. These are all words from that time period. But today, we would openly question their origin. We would accept that they could appear in front of us or do something. It could frighten some of the population, but I think I'd have a curious mind more about it, as I've experienced some very strange things, like an eye that seemed to be peering between two curtains, and like on a green screen, but there was
that
no
really
green
freaked
screen.
me out. Is that really spend some time on this, because that's a phenomenal experience, bro.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in the lounge room watching TV. It's at nighttime. I have a very tall ceiling in my lounge room, and it's a 4-meter ceiling. It's where the architects of this house, and it's quite nice, right? So watching TV, my daughter is just sitting a little behind me on another lounge. So we have two lounges kind of in a 90, but the TV's right directly in front of her, rather. And we're watching some show, and she said, "When did we get an owl?" And I go, I go, "What owl?" And as I turned to her, I observed the thing that she could see. And it appeared to be, say you're at a theatre and those big drapes are down, and the curtains down, and someone's peering between the curtains. That's what it appeared to me to be. And only what was visible between the curtains, or pulled apart, was what I could see. I couldn't see any other form around, and it seemed to be reasonably tall, but more like a lion's eye, if that makes any sense. And the fur was short and furry, like you would find on the traveling case of audio equipment. Very strange. Very strange. But it had a vertical slotted eye with a yellow coloured eye, if that makes any sense. So not the white. The white was white, but the actual colour of the coloration of the, we would say blue eyes or brown eyes. That was a yellow eye. And it was very strange. And so I've looked at it and I've gone, hang on a minute. I looked back at the TV and I'm processing the owl statement still. And I looked back and it was gone. And there was nothing there. I didn't get up out of my seat to look at it. I didn't take a photograph of it. I did none of that. But because it was only like, and it was gone. So, when did we get an owl? What? And that's when I noticed it. And I turned back and it was gone. So, if there was a way to describe, the all-seeing eye that observes us all the time, if anyone had ever seen something like that, that was kind of what I could imagine that would have been. Was it aliens? Were they? Was it part of a creature that was just basically out of phase? Was there a creature in my room? I don't know. Was it pulling apart this reality, viewing it from outside? I don't know. I don't know what it was, but geez, I'll tell you, from that moment forward, I observe a lot of things around me, and I attempt to try and make sense of it. I could not make sense at the time of what I was seeing. It wasn't there long enough. And I certainly wasn't brave enough. The eye wasn't a small eye either. It was kind of like baseball sized.
Maybe, just maybe, all the imagery we have of the all-seeing eye and those things, right? Which was then translated in popular culture, with the Eye of Mordor, but you see the Eye
that's
of
right.
the Pyramid, the Eye of Horus. It's the eye is everywhere, right? CBS has taken this as a logo. Who's to say? Since you've seen it, and Dave has no reason, neither do I really, because we're not really making any money from this, to lie about this. So if Dave has seen it, then I believe Dave has seen it. Not just him; he wasn't alone. There was someone else seeing it with him.
Yeah.
In fact, she probably saw it first, right? Because she asked you about the owl.
That's right.
And so, what it is, we can only speculate, right? That it happened. I want to say yes to that. It did. Then the question has to be: has it happened to other people? And again, the answer must be probably. And then did those people then, capture it in art, tell stories, and other people capture it in art or whatever, and the all-seeing eye? Because clearly, an eye just appearing, as it were, from a seeming curtain, as it were, in the middle of your living room, as it were, is extraordinary.
That's right.
And it would have stuck. And maybe that's where the imagery that we're all only too familiar with actually comes from. Right? And as to what it is, maybe it's the eye of a scientist looking down in his petri dish. I don't know. But it is, for me, I've heard many very interesting stories. Some things happened to me that were interesting, but that, in my opinion, right, if I had seen it, for me, that would be a complete game changer for everything. Right? Because
there was a turning point for me, too.
Yeah. It's like, what? Because the thing is, a disappearing telephone and some of the other things happened to me are relatively innocuous and not threatening really at all. It's okay, the phone disappeared, came back. Okay, I can deal with that. I have an eye staring at me in my living room from what appears to be a rip in reality.
It definitely looked like it was green screen to me. Like I know TV effects and movie effects. I've got an image that I could find on the internet just now. Quick search is kind of very similar to what it looked like, except that it was about the size. That's a small domestic cat,
right.
But just similar to that in that vertical pupil style. So yes, look, it didn't frighten me as much as I was curious, and even today, I don't get any kind of weird skin effect or anything from thinking about it. So.
Well, that's good, but again, because the story is so phenomenal and so out of the ordinary to any of the phenomena we discussed, right? And then look, again, there's many more, and we won't cover all of them in detail here because we do want to get to the meat of the text. But suffice it to say,
he looks at his watch. There's 99 pages. We're on page 3 of it.
So I'm actually looking at my calendar, Dave, not my watch. Okay. So we've covered. Secret societies, death and resurrection. Mind control was a subject we covered just recently. It's one of the later show cycles where we postulated that what happens or what is happening in the Trump administration doesn't make any sense. People flip-flopping on their opinions and doing 180s to positions they held just a year ago, and even less in some cases. Is there a level of mind control? Yes or no? We do know that mind control is constantly being used in our society, mostly to sell us stuff, but it's there. We talked about fiat currency, the monetary system, which is the greatest long con in history, and both Dave and I'm pretty sure I can speak freely here, are of the opinion that our economic system is dead, and it's going to take us with it if we don't do something else. Fiat currency, our money, our whole capitalist outlook on the world and on life is killing us. Killing us, and it's killing the planet. And that's just the truth. I'm sorry. And the people that could make a difference just won't.
Yeah.
They just won't. They're not doing it. Right? Comparative mythology, that's my favorite. And up until this moment, the flood myths were the longest show notes we had. The flood myths, which are permeating across all cultures And Dave, in my opinion, hark back to a time some 12, 13,000 years ago in the Younger Dryas, when something happened, maybe an impact that caused massive tsunamis, but also brought about, significant volcanic tectonic activity, led to a melting of the ice age glaciers that were covering North America and most of the northern hemisphere, really. Which, of course, then led to the destruction of the reigning civilization or civilizations at that time that most likely existed around the equatorial region, which was 100 meters lower. The water level of the oceans was 100 meters lower than today. So you can imagine how much land would have been available at that point. Why don't you take us to a couple more of the topics we discussed?
Oh, thanks. Depopulation agendas and Ebola, as well as other diseases. Now, remember, when we started this, we didn't even have COVID.
That's correct.
Think about that for a minute. I saw Australia's population decrease by 50,000 or something in the last couple of years. What that was attributed to is still yet to be determined. Linguistic mysteries, and we did a whole bunch of shows on isolates, also the etymology of language, and how language could have come about. Thinking about, for me, my favorite, Anunnaki, the Sumerians, written language that just popped out of nowhere, to be honest with you. And I think we also talked about that all babies in the world, Meki, can do the first three natural sounds. The na, the ma, and the pa. They're all capable. All babies are capable of making all language sounds. And it's only after hearing it do they start abandoning some of the ones that aren't used. Isn't that extraordinary?
It is, actually.
But then you've got to think about this, and because I think it ties in with telepathy and the original language. I will lead this in, and you can take it. And thinking about how a baby is able to hear the language and then kind of drops off its other skill sets from the other sounds it would need to make in every language. You think about telepathy, and if you'd never heard someone using telepathy with you, you would never understand how to speak with it. So when someone doesn't speak, if they're incapable of speaking because they can't hear anything and they don't know that you're making real sound, it's very difficult for them to be able to speak audibly. And the same would then be attributable to telepathy. If you haven't heard it, how do you do it? And I think our instruction manual has been lost. I don't think we exhibit it anymore very much. We're all skilled in it, and there's evidence there that we can do it, but do we? Not really. Wouldn't it be better if we could? Yes. And how much is communicable through telepathy rather than it's an idea, Meki, isn't it? You're not just shouting words at someone.
Correct. It's so if you think about telepathy, don't think that you're thinking words at someone, like Dave said. It's concept, ideas, emotions. It's the full spectrum of communication. And funnily enough, it would be a perfect communication. There would be no room for error, as you would be feeling and experiencing everything the transmitter sends to you, right? So you would completely understand their intent and what they're actually trying to tell you. Whereas if I say chair, now Dave knows what I mean by chair, right? You know what I mean by chair, but what is in your mind? Like Immanuel Kant called it the noumen, the thing of itself, which seems to exist in some kind of, philosophical space, like the essence of a chair, as it were, or the essence of an apple. I mean, what is the essence of a chair? How do you define a chair? Now, if I think at you, the concept of chair, you immediately know what I'm thinking, right? But I might be thinking of a chair, a four-legged wooden chair with leather upholstery or whatever, right? With armrests maybe. But you're thinking, when I say chair, are you thinking like a office chair, with
Mm-hmm.
ergonomic features. They're all chairs, but we are not communicating the same thing. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying chair, but we mean two different things completely.
It has a loss of
Not
accuracy.
possible. Completely,
Mhm.
100%. And the loss of accuracy or fidelity, as I like to call it, is enormous. Because words cannot convey the completeness of a thing,
Mhm.
or anything for that matter. And then you have to come back, what is the essence of the nomen, right? What is the essence of the thing you speak of? And this goes hand in hand with the language confusion. So I strongly believe that our original language was telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have used verbal language, if you will, for special occasions or for singing or for whatever, right? Maybe if you wanted to make an impact, you have a speech, you actually have the speech, you make a speech if you wanted to, right? But probably in a language that is a lot more perfect than the language we have today. But then somebody came along and took that, amongst other things, from us for some kind of transgression, as we're told in the mythology.
Mm-hmm.
We did something they didn't like. The gods, the watchers, whatever. I mean, the higher beings, they didn't like what we did. Whatever it was. Some say we built a tower. Others said we did, we turned to cannibalism. Like there was a great sin that we were being punished for, which brought the flood, which wiped us out for the most part. And now look at Homo sapiens 3.0 or even 4.0. That's us. But at that point, our longevity was taken away, and our telepathic ability was taken away. I'm sure there were other things as well, but these are probably the ones that affected us the most. Dying early and not being able to perfectly communicate anymore. Because the thing is this, when it comes to conflict, think about it for a second. If we're separated by language, right, it's really hard to find common ground. Even if you speak the same language. I had a gentleman I worked with, Basil, a great guy, really great guy, and he used to say we're separated by common language, and he's right. Like I said before, if I say something, right, and you hear what I'm saying, you hear the word, but for you the word means something other than what I mean by it. For example, now imagine how much worse that gets when you don't speak the same language, right? And you communicate through translator, or worse of all, no translator, sign language, and broken maybe a common third language potentially. But communication, proper communication, is not possible at that point, right? And some languages are so different from other languages that meaningful communication may never be possible because the basic concepts aren't the same, right? Because it's a different kind of reality these people experience, which is expressed through their words. Let's say snow. I say snow. The Eskimos can say snow, I think 50 different ways, conveying completely different things, right? And that's a direct experiential thing. So if I say snow and the Eskimo says the word for brittle snow that will kill you as it sucks you down into the icy water, like I say, oh, it's snow outside, and the Eskimo says, yeah, there's snow outside, but in his language, which conveys a lot more meaning. So I go out and I get sucked into the water and freeze to death. And he goes, why did you? I just told you what kind of snow it is, moron. So we may never find common ground if you speak different languages. And it also conveys different philosophical concepts. So for the Chinese, not to pick on them, but for the Chinese, the group, the family, the totality of the Chinese is more important than the individual. That's just the fact of Chinese culture. Got nothing to do with communism. Always has been like that. And the family and the elders are a critical thing, right? This is you as an individual are not as important as the family or the state. Full stop. In the West, it's the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. We've taken individualism to the extreme. And for us, the most important thing is the individual. Forget the state. Forget the family. It's me, right? Completely different points of view. And if you don't speak the same language, how do you even find common ground to start with? And we try all the time. We did that. Myths. Yeah. Look, when Dave and I came across the myths, the legends, and compared them, there have been a few books written about comparative mythology. It's fascinating stuff. The same or very similar stories, forget the flood myths for a second, but they're very similar stories told across the world, right? About, certain entities, certain events, certain, I guess, hero tales. And they're very similar all around. And I was really blown away when I realized that the Igigi were actually the root word for giants.
Wow.
Right? And the Igigi, of course, are the, I guess, cousins, brothers of the Anunnaki, the workers or the worker class, right? And also meant to be the watchers that were left here. And they're the giants of old, mentioned in the Bible, that, then lay with the daughters of men to create the heroes of old, the hybrid race of humans and gods.
But
why don't you tell us about
what was weird though, Mickey? We didn't know that the Igigi was a thing. We first did the
that's
Anunnaki
right.
stories, and the Igigi was never mentioned in any of it.
No,
and then suddenly
that popped up after.
There it is. Like, what happened? It's like the Mandela effect of the Anunnaki.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of it is. That's right.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Megalithic cultures is an amazing one, because the megalithic structures found all around the world all share what appears to be a tools down event. All of their constructions seem to be 2 separate generations worth, or 2 civilizations worth. There were the truly ancient megalithic structures, which were using excessively large stone blocks. And then another version, which was also impossibly cut versions. So more reasonably sized stone, but yet it looked like they could soften it to, putty or clay or something like that and harden it in place, which doesn't make any sense because, and scoop marks, Meki, is the other in the megalithic structures. How could they soften a material so much to be able to scoop it? And we find that in South America, we find that in Egypt, we find it in Turkey, we find it all around the world, Pumapunku. It doesn't make any difference where you find it. These tools down event where the civilization hadn't finished constructing things, was in the midst of constructing their civilization's buildings, and they've left behind pieces still in the quarries. They've got incomplete structures. I don't mean torn down structures. I mean things that look like they were going to be completed, but they just stopped work. What happened? Was that one of the cataclysms around the world that prevented them from concluding? What about the impossible techniques or material science, or their use of metals in those eye clips that were melted or poured in between the blocks? So not only their use because they could, because we can't and we don't. We use cement today, or concrete, in the same way that they use or used stone. And their stone will be there after our concrete has disappeared. Because stone lasts longer than concrete.
100%.
Steel lasts less long, and glass even less. Isn't it extraordinary? That we're building extremely temporary buildings that wouldn't last 1,000 years. And yet we've got thousands of years on their dates. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Also, let's say there were another cataclysmic event.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Sure.
Let's hope not, but
it's bound to happen anyway, so at some point.
You know what survived? Those megalithic
They'll still be there
survive
for the next rising of civilization.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not all of them, because who knows what the destruction is going to be like. But but it's not going to be time and erosion that's going to kill them. Okay, whereas with us, even if there was no mega catastrophe like an explosion or a volcanic eruption or meteor impact or whatever, but let's say we all just died of the flu, right? Within 4,000 or 5,000 years, most traces of our civilization would have disappeared. Within 10,000 years, probably completely. But guess what? The megalithic structures would still be there, maybe buried. Okay, maybe under sand, maybe under jungle, as we're finding them now.
That's right.
But they would still be there. Whereas our glass, our concrete, our asphalt, all of that would have gone the way of the dodo.
Totally. 100%.
Hilarious.
I know.
Yeah, I know, right?
And that makes me believe that we might have had another civilization in between. We're seeing the ancient, megalithic structures, and today we might have had another one in between. We know that there was something around 12,000 years ago, and that was at the time when we lost all the megafauna.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And again, there are stories. There are stories. Okay, there are stories about these ancient cultures. Atlantis, they're called, other names as well, which is interesting. Atlantis, because Atl, Mu, Atl is the Aztec word for water. But you find the Atl prefix also on the other side of the Atlantic with the Atlas range in other places. So Atl, the word for water, seems to be common both sides of the Atlantic, right? Atl. That's that. I mean, you can get at the mysteries linguistically, geologically, archaeologically, historically, mythologically, and they will all reap the same kind of fruits. You will come to the conclusion, hey, something, but you have to be willing to step away from the common or accepted path. You have to be willing to step out of bounds. Right? If you don't, then you will never find out anything new. It's just not going to happen. Which brings us to the last few topics. The talk about just take us, because we have time, I think, for Utopia, Unseen, and Prophecy, and then water. We covered a lot more topics, but we didn't put them all here because that would just take too long. But why don't you tell us something about that?
You talk about Utopia.
Okay. Look, again, the Golden Age, Utopia, a land before time, a land where milk and honey flow. This Golden Age is again, it's a generic occurrence in most cultures. However, there's a common misconception, and I'm wrong, that the dream time or the great dreaming is that Golden Age for the original inhabitants of Australia. It is not. It is not an utopia. It's not a golden. Oh, it's probably utopia, but it's not a long gone golden age. The dreaming still exists. It is always everywhere, all the time, and we just can't get there. Right now, the elders might be able to get there through special rituals and maybe meditation, who knows what. But it is not some long forgotten time or place. The dreaming or the dream time is always everywhere. That's really important to understand, right? Because it doesn't make any sense otherwise if you look at it. So this is, but it's also a very hopeful message, because it means, well, it's still there. We can still get there, right? We just have to, figure out how. Maybe let go of a few preconceived ideas. Dave?
Yeah, so the unseen. You better do that one.
Again, we looked at. See, this is a funny thing. We live in the world, and our sensory perception is extremely limited. We see in a very small spectrum of the electromagnetic frequencies. Our vision is very limited, right? To visible light.
Only.
Our hearing. Sorry?
Only.
Yeah, correct. Our hearing is extremely limited compared to other creatures.
And it's from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz.
Yeah. Our other senses like smell and taste, etc., etc. They're also extremely limited. Now, some of us have extra senses, like we like to call them, the I guess the ESP, extra sensory perception kind of things. Not really talking about that necessarily, but that's out there as well. But what is the unseen? The unseen is this: our eyes see at a certain frame rate, believe it or not. Okay, anything that moves faster than the frame rate of our eye, we cannot see. Full stop. Okay, that's why we can't see a bullet. We know the bullet is being fired, right? And the funny thing is this, right? In war, I think my grandfather told me, but I heard it many times since then. You never hear the bullet that kills you, right? Because the bullet is traveling faster at you than the sound the bullet makes as it leaves the barrel. Okay, you will never hear the bullet that kills you. So if you hear a shot, rest assured it's probably not going to kill you. So that's good. But there are many things we cannot perceive, right? Some of the things are actively filtered out. And my favorite example, as you all know, is the gorilla that moves across the screen as a group of people pass medicine balls to each other, or basketballs. And your task is to count the number of passes of a certain ball. As you do that, you concentrate on it, you filter out everything else, you concentrate on how many times that ball is passed. And then at the end of the thing, they ask you, did you see the gorilla? And you go, what? So, and I did this, and I honestly say I did not see the gorilla. And then you go back to the video, and lo and behold, there's a gorilla, like a man in a gorilla suit, walking, back and front, left and right on the screen. Even in front of the people passing the ball, oddly enough, right? And what you see there is that we filter out a whole bunch of information. Now, autistic children or people filter out nothing. And that's why they are usually in the state that they're in, because there's too much information coming at them all the time. It's really, really tough. There's no filter at all. But the unseen also refers to things that are moving faster, like I said, than we can perceive. What if there was a whole hidden world of creatures and I don't know, whatever, that just move so fast that we simply cannot see them, right? Now, you say, oh, that sounds crazy, Mickey. Well, not really. Compared to a tree, we're the Flash. Like if a tree can perceive of our existence, right? We know that plants have fields and they have sensory apparatus. They can react to the environment just very, very slowly, right? Because that's just, how they are. Whereas we would be flashing by, zooming by, right? And they would have a hard time, perceiving us. I mean, some things they would perceive, but most things they couldn't, because it's just too fast. And it would be the same for us and these fast-moving entities that are moving so fast that we simply cannot see them. Now, these days, though, I come back to the cameras that are everywhere. We're capturing a lot more crazy, odd, non-normal stuff, as we call it, on the cameras. And maybe that's when these particular entities, maybe they're sick, maybe they slow down for some reason. But all of a sudden, we see more and more of these odd things, right? And there's a whole unseen world, right? Beyond what we can perceive, right? So speed limits us. Our vision, or the spectrum within which we operate, limits us. Auditorily, we're limited. We're limited in every possible way. We can never perceive the whole world. We want to perceive the world in its entirety. We need machines to help us to see into the infrared, ultraviolet, on the other side of the spectrum. And or X-rays on the other side of the spectrum again, right? Which let us see into someone's body. MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, lets us see the details that we don't get with X-rays, for example. Right? And we're inventing more and more things to see more and more things, right? But still, the totality of our sensory experience it eludes us. We can't see it all. It's not possible for us to perceive it all. Anyway, that's the unseen.
That's all right. We've only got less than a minute left, so it doesn't matter. we were going to talk about prophecy, language confusion, and water. The only thing I'd talk about in language confusion is the Hopi prophecies. They say their history says that we were separated and we were given different languages. And when the North, South, and East and West get together again in a shared language, there can be peace again on Earth. But until then, we were separated. Our language was diversified so that we couldn't make peace. But, Mackie, there is the music. And that's another David Mackey Shiny Side Out right there for you. We'll catch you Tuesday and Thursday, 7 a.m. Eastern US time for Plato's Cave, and yet again next week for Shiny Side Out. But Mackie, if you don't like, share, subscribe, and comment on any of our videos, at least, what do we ask?
Be safe!